Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you everybody for joining us for our second Talk Birdie to Me webinar. I am Caitlin Egan. I'm a group manager at Crowe PR, which is a San Diego-based PR and social media agency. We specialize in all things hospitality, tech, consumer products, and professional services. We're so excited to be here today to discuss in the media, looking back and moving forward, and talking with an amazing lineup of three writers from across the country to discuss how the media world has changed over the last 7 or so months, how they've adjusted, and how they see the future of media moving forward. I'm also joined here by my colleague and co-host, Sarah Kinsella.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'm Sarah, Crowe PR's media director, and as mentioned, we're joined by a great group of panelists this morning, including Alice Dubin, Kelsey Ogletree, and Katie Parker Magyar, who will let them introduce themselves in just a second. But for the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be asking some questions and giving each of these panelists a few minutes to answer and provide their insight. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A box where you can submit them for our panelists, and we'll take a few minutes at the end of the webinar to go through those. So we will start off with each of you briefly introducing yourselves and telling us a bit about yourself, what topics you cover, and what outlets you write for. So Kelsey, why don't we start with you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm Kelsey Ogletree. I'm originally from Montana, and I spent the better part of the last 10 years living in Chicago. I was an editor for about 7 years, and then I've had a freelance writing business for the past 3 years. And my primary beats are travel, wellness, and food. I write a lot for Wall Street Journal, Condé Nast Traveler, AARP, Midwest Living, Real Simple, Luxe Interiors, and a lot of others, but those are some of my most common outlets. And my husband and I just moved to Florence, Alabama, which is about 2 hours south of Nashville, about 2 weeks ago. So loving that small town life right now and figuring out how that is going to factor into travel writing in the future. In addition to that, I also am a contract editor for a meetings and events trade publication. So I cover travel from that side of things. And then I also launched a business earlier this year called Office Hours, where I connect publicists to freelance writers in 1 hour Zoom calls every week, where they can kind of get to know freelance writers on a personal basis and understand how to pitch them. And Catherine was actually in one of my travel series back in July. So that's really fun. And I have another series launching in October, but that is basically who I am.
Thanks, Kelsey. I know some of our team have signed up for those office hours before. So awesome thing. Catherine, why don't we have you go next?
Great. So I am Catherine Parker Magyar, but I go by Katie. And I am a writer who covers, recently I've been focusing mainly on travel, but I started out, like travel, lifestyle, culture, wrote about politics and dating. I write a lot for Trip Savvy, Forbes, and then also like published in like Daily Beast, Architectural Digest, The Week, Business Insider. And I'd say that my main beats, which I mean, fundamentally, I'm really interested in like narrative stories, like narrative travel stories. For me, I mean, although I will do, that right now I'm doing literally like the 10 best beaches in Martinique. So I do a bunch, but I feel like that's sort of how I really got my start in the travel industry, was writing those first person experiences and like, meeting people. And I feel like the people are always the place. So that has kind of been what I've been focusing on, but I know we're going to talk about what we're focusing on now more next. But yeah, like I started out as a newspaper reporter in high school, and then college, and then went to grad school for literature, and then I just started traveling. I started writing full-time about 3 years ago, and travel was always my dream beat because I feel like you can write about so many different things under the umbrella of travel. I've written about dating and travel, I've written about politics, or like anything you want, and I found it very difficult to break into at first, so I wrote, which I think was good, so then I sort of wrote a ton of different stuff, but then travel started taking off for me a couple of years ago, and then I traveled like a plague was coming, and just a lot of as many experiences that I could have and stories I could write. So now it's been like almost nice to have a slowdown, but yeah, I know this whole thing is about the future of travel, so I'm not gonna like jump ahead. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm very grateful for all of the great help Crowe PR. Everyone at Crowe PR has always been like wonderful resources for me to work with all of my stories, and just like really great. And I really credit like my success in the travel industry to the relationships that I made with, travel professionals early on in my career, So thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. And for any publicists watching, she is always open for wine Zooms. So if you have any of those, feel free to reach out. And last, I will pass it over to Alice.
Great. Hi, everybody. So my byline is Alessandra Dubin. I go by Alice, and you can call me whatever. And I actually learning about Kelsey from this webinar already. I feel like we have a lot in common. So I started my career as a meeting and events editor for BizBash, trade publication in New York. Moved out to LA, to where I'm from, to launch the West Coast versions of the meeting and events trade. Wrote about events for a very long time. Then I started growing my freelance business and expanding mainly to various lifestyle verticals. A lot about parenting when I had my twins in 2014, a lot about home when I was restoring my house, kind of, it's nice that it can sort of ebb and flow with your, when you're writing about lifestyle, you have things to pull from that change with your lifestyle. I was most recently a staff editor at bravotv.com, launching the travel vertical there as we were growing up our lifestyle content, and also I oversaw the food vertical. About a year ago, and we can get into this more, but I was laid off in a reorganization, and I think now, it was actually a year ago, just days ago, so it was, pretty much exactly that, and I feel like it kind of well positioned me because I had started my freelance. This was the first time that I had ever been full-time freelance, although I had freelance in other ways in the past, and so I was kind of already, by the time the pandemic hit, I was quite well diversified and following the story and following the money. And, I didn't sort of like lose my job in the middle of this and have nothing to fall back on. So I in some ways that sort of worked out oddly well. My current outlets are primarily, I write a lot about again, my verticals are primarily travel, other lifestyle, a lot of health and wellness, parenting, Business Insider for travel, Good Housekeeping. I do a lot of evergreen lifestyle content as well as personal essaying, Best Life, a whole range of stuff, Trip Savvy for commerce content, Shondaland, and on. I also do some I'm actually expanding my business a bit more into content marketing with a focus on kind of similar stuff, travel, wellness, health, events.